Okay, let's call the meeting to order. The 22nd of January of the regular monthly meeting of the Oregon City Public Library. In attendance are Cynthia Andrews, Bill Carton, Larry Osborne, Lisa Oreskovich, Heidi Blackwell, Nick Dierman, and Greg Williams and Denise Butcher. Staff are in attendance. We have 2 minutes that we need to approve. Any comments, any changes, corrections, errors that anybody picked up? If not, can I have a motion, please? First, the regular meeting minutes of 12:20.
I'll move to approve minutes of 12:20 regular meeting.
Second, please.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now the minutes of the work session of that date. Same thing. Motion, please.
I move we approve the minutes of work session.
Okay, second, please.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Library director's meeting report.
Thank you, David. So first, I'll just take a couple of minutes. I put together just a few photos, just an update on the flooring project. Let me get that shared. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. And this is by no means a fancy presentation. There we go. Okay. So just for project status and timeline, this was the timeline we put together. We are at the tail end of phase 3. Almost all of the flooring has been done, which is great. They still have to do some final touch-ups, install quarter round edging, do some transition work, but we are feeling very good about being on schedule. We still do plan to close for a couple days at the end of next week, just to let us move furniture back and to kind of get back to normal. But I think we're on track for all of this. Just to make sure everybody knows, we had the material that we went with. We had originally thought we were going to go one material for a variety of reasons. We decided to go with a different one. I really like the new material. So it is Brazilian cherry. And I know there are lots of people who know a lot more about wood than I do. So for those people, I pulled some stats about various aspects of wood. I think the thing I like best about the Brazilian cherry is it's much harder than the Doug fir that we had in there, which should make it much more durable, especially in a high traffic, library environment. So it's harder, it's less flexible, and so it keeps its shape better. So it seems like a very good choice for the library. I think I've shown this picture to a couple of you before, but just to make sure everybody saw it. So this is a picture that just kind of shows the beginning of the project. The top part is the old floor, and the bottom part, ignore the blue tape. The bottom part is the new floor. So, in terms of that red color, we were able to match that pretty closely. The size of the slats is very similar. The layout, the grain of the cherry is slightly more pronounced than the Doug fir, but I think everything about the wood, to me and to staff, seemed to really honor the historical character of the first floor of the library. So we were very happy with it, and I got a couple of pictures. Some of these I had to go back to COVID times to get these before pictures, and I had a little flashback to some of these. So I'm over it now, but on the left, you can see an aerial view of the lobby. That was when we had the end cut wood in there. And then to the right is what's there now. So very similar in color. Aesthetically, personally, I like the new floor a lot better than what we had previously. Check-in room, I didn't have quite the same angle, but you can see there's the before on the left, and here is the after on the right. There's a little dust there that we haven't been able to sweep up yet. But the check-in room is looking great. They managed to get it installed without taking out the automated materials handler, which we were very curious how that was going to happen, and they made it happen just fine. So, which was great. Here's the holds room. So on the left is before, and on the right is after. That picture's exposure is a little darker than the one on the left, but it was the one that I had that was the closest angle to it. And then finally, here's the Carnegie. Here's what the Carnegie looked like without a floor. And so, as we were briefly talking, on the right is just a sample of that subfloor. There were places, and you can see some on the left as well. There were places where the subfloor had just disintegrated or was, just there were gaps. And so the contractors did go through and fill those gaps in the subfloor to make sure that we had a good foundation. And then on the left is a picture before, and then on the right, are a couple of pictures of the after. The one on the right is the Carnegie proper. The one in the after, this one on the left, it's going from the check-in room into the Carnegie. And it looks, to me, it all looks really good. It's fun to walk on it and not hear creaks every step we take. Yeah, I think that's it. So I just wanted to give you all a quick update on the progress of the project. Are there any questions about it?
Craig, it's the, can we schedule the conference room at this point?
No, not yet. It'll be back because there was some unanticipated dust and noise downstairs in the staff area. We had anticipated using the conference room storage during the whole project. It is actually now being used as ancillary staff workspace. So
when are you guessing it's going to be open?
February 1st.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Yep. So same, yeah, and we tried to get that information out. That's the same schedule we had. So
yeah, I did. I just wasn't so sure. I want to schedule.
Yep. And that's part of the reason we're closing for those 2 days is we got to move everything out of the community room that's been serving as a temporary circulation room. So where we're having holds pick up and doing all our crates. So we just got to get all that stuff moved out, and so that people, yes, can reserve both of those rooms. Yes, we anticipate February 1st they'll be back online.
Okay, great, thanks.
Greg gave me a tour yesterday, and it's absolutely stunning. I mean, I think they did a great job, and the wood is warm. It feels good.
Well, thank you, Dave. So yes, I'm very excited to welcome everybody back in to take a look at it when it's all done. We'll do a little tour. If you stop by, you can have a tour if I'm here, but we can also do one as part of our next meeting if we want. Other than that, the only thing that I wanted to note from my director's report, we got our first library district distribution in December. As I mentioned in the report, the county has they've slightly changed the schedule on which we get distributions. We used to get 2 distributions every fiscal year. They are now going to do 3 distributions to more closely align with those tax due dates that everybody sees on their property tax statement. One of them will come in July, but our finance department has assured us they can backdate it to the per fiscal year. So the only real impact is this year. It's going to be a little harder for us during our budgetary, to kind of project revenue because we always cast the last year's example, and now our first payment doesn't have a month worth of revenue that we usually get in our first payment in the past. So we'll just have to. I'm not real worried about it, but that's kind of the only impact of it. But as of, for revenues, we're right on budget. Probably running a little ahead of budget on library revenues, which is always a good place to be. I don't believe I had any particular statistical things to point out. So at this point, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
On the one stat, I went through them earlier today, and I was so we have there was a report that shows the number of people that participated or
yes.
checked out books that are in.
Oh, yes.
And then unincorporated, and then there's the other. Can you remind me what the other is? Because it's 8% of our total.
The other is, in a perfect world, the other would be probably mix agreement folks. So for those who might not remember, we call it the Metropolitan Intergovernmental Exchange, I believe is what MIC stands for. That's the agreement that lets folks from Multnomah County come to a Clackamas County library and get a library card, and lets us go to Washington County and get Washington County library cards. And in our system, those get categorized as something other than, city residents, county residents. They get categorized as, mixed participant. So in theory, that's what most of those should be. In practice, because these are human beings putting data into a system, I'm sure that in some of those others, if we took a really close look at them, we might be able to assign them to, city residents, or, maybe they've moved in the past couple of years and we just haven't updated it. So,
All right, thanks.
Yep. And Heidi, you had a question?
Yeah, one was, just kind of a wondering around the events or activities. It says live, hybrid, on-site. Do you track, or, obviously there's information on how those are, different activities are provided. Is that used for decision-making, then, that information on how people access different activities? I would just be curious.
Yes, that is a great question. So the primary purpose of those categorizations is that's what the state library now asks as part of our annual statistical reporting that we do in October. And just to make it easier on us, it's easier to classify the programs, up front, rather than trying to go back and look at each worth of data. So when our programmers enter it into our little spreadsheet, those are the categories they pick from. We do have a spot in the data collection tool that we use that if it is truly a hybrid program, they can record here was in-person attendance and here are many people were online. Anecdotally, when I look at ones that would do it that way, as we've gotten further from the pandemic, the hybrid has gone down, and people's general preference seems to be in person. But yes, for some of those we do. And in that category, as you see, it even if it's categorized as a live, hybrid, online, even if it's all live, that's what it gets categorized as for the state library. There is no just plain in-person programming. They've combined those into a single category. Does that help?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I was just curious on that language. And then I have a second question, again, kind of anecdotally, how circulation has been affected with the closures. And then number two, communication-wise, getting the word out that it was closed, just positives or negatives, and that's more related to if you end up changing the schedule, how to get that information out. So circulation and then communication about changes.
I will put Denise on the spot, and she can talk about circulation. I think it's gone. It's gone. I don't think it's gone down any.
No, I don't think it's gone down any. We haven't been any less busy by any means. Our CERC staff is much busier because they're doing everything by hand. We don't have the benefit of the AMH. We're also handling every single hold for a patron instead of them being able to go to the shelf and get them themselves. So yeah, as far as staff work, it's increased. But I don't think we've lost circulation now.
Yeah. And judging from the incoming amount of crates that we've been getting from our, from other libraries, that doesn't seem to have slowed down.
So definitely, yeah.
So, yeah. And then, getting the word out. That's definitely, anecdotally, we have had a couple of people come in and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were closing." So that's, I think it's a challenge that we always have. How to get the word out to people in a way that they will, be able to that will connect with them. I don't think, and Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, because you talk to the CERC staff or frontline staff more often. I don't think there have been any particular problems or a large amount of people who didn't know about it. Not any more than I would say for any other program or any other announcement. Going forward, yes, for an hour's change, we will want to make sure we get that information out there. The thing that's hardest for us is, as we talk about in the city survey, trail news is like a huge, source of information for folks. And the publication schedule of Trail News is such that, basically we have to have stuff ready 3 months in advance. And for some of these things, it's a little hard for us to plan that far out. So that's a topic we talk with our communication folks regularly about. Is there a way to kind of shrink that timeline? But so far, we haven't figured out a good way.
Anything else? Great. Any public comment, Denise?
No.
No? Okay, great. The first item for discussion and action are the officers' elections for 2025. And I guess I'll just open that up. I'm willing to serve as chair again, but I'm also happy to hand the baton to anybody else who's interested. So let's deal with first the chair position.
We need a nomination for you.
I presume, yes.
Yeah, well, in that case, I nominate David Goldberg as chair.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I say aye? Thank you.
Or David has to deal with me for another year.
That's right. And now for the deputy chair, and open the nominations again. Cynthia, are you interested in serving again?
I would do it, but if someone else would like to do it, I would be happy to cede that to them. So I don't want to just, hog that position just because I have it. So if someone else would love to do it, I'd be happy to have them do it. I
Nomination?
don't see anybody jumping up and down, so.
Yeah, it's just lacking anybody jumping up and down. I would nominate Cynthia as the vice chair.
Thank you.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Next, the community survey results. And
Sorry,
great.
actually, I think we had revision of board applicant interview.
oh, I'm sorry, revision.
But we
of
can
board
move around
applicant.
if you want to.
No, that's fine. Let's do that.
Okay.
The revision. The last couple of times we did the interviews with the applicants, we were all sort of a little confused as some of the questions. And I think it would be helpful to have one or two people go through them and do a revision and present it at the next board meeting. And I'm looking for volunteers to do that. So, all right.
I'll volunteer for that, David.
Bill and Cynthia, okay?
And me, yeah.
All right. Yeah, Bill and Cynthia will do that, and then they can work with Greg or with Denise, and we'll get that ready for the next board meeting. Thank you.
Quick
Okay.
question on that topic. The last question, asking people if they're available on Wednesday night, once a month. That's almost like a screening question before they even get qualified for an applicant. Is that something that we can address?
I will certainly ask our recorder. I don't think philosophically they would have a question. It's whether or not the software that they use to recruit people allows that. But yeah, certainly something we can ask them about.
There are filter questions up there, like do you live in the city or the unincorporated area? But yeah.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So yeah, we could put it as a filter, and then I presume the
just
recorder would be fine with that.
It would make a lot more sense. I mean, we have even where it is positioned in the
Right.
questions, it's like, okay, so now we ask this real basic yes or no question.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have a question, David. Are you calling Bill and I together, or are we calling ourselves together?
Why don't you work with Greg and just get together? I don't need to be there.
Okay, all right.
I presume, David, you are saying that this is we'll call it the interview question committee. It is an official.
That's what we're calling it. Yes.
Okay. Good.
The official title.
Committee.
Okay. So we will, as with any committee meeting, we will publicly notice it and make sure that we're,
Right.
above board. So yeah, Cynthia and Bill will get in contact with you, and we'll just find it.
And there will be donuts. Yeah.
There you go.
Bill's been recorded and you saying it, so donuts.
Bill's doing donuts is what I hear.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All righty. So now the community survey results, please, Greg.
I have just one comment.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I just wanted to, obviously, Lisa's back with us again, so
Oh, yes.
you
Welcome,
were
Lisa.
nominated and then
Thank you.
accepted. So I
Thank
just want to say welcome back, Lisa.
Well, Lisa, I must say you were our unanimous decision. So
Thank you. I'm very happy to serve again. Thank you, Dave.
We're very happy to have you. So thank you.
Thanks, Heidi, for reminding us.
Denise, we should have made Lisa sweat a little bit before we. Okay.
All right, Greg.
Okay, city survey. So, and I do apologize that I put the wrong version of the extract into the packet. I fixed the packet online. I hope everybody got my follow-up email that had just those extra pages. I sincerely apologize for that. So as everybody on this board, I think, knows, every 2 years, the city does a city commissions a city satisfaction survey, which surveys residents of the city of Oregon City on their satisfaction with various departments and services the city offers, one of those being the library. The library has historically rated very well overall, and I'm very pleased to be able to report to all of you that this year, once again, our overall satisfaction rating is very, very, very high. Not that library folks are competitive in any way, shape, or form, but we're very, very competitive, especially when it comes to police. So, anytime we can be at the top of the list, we like that. So as you can see, the overall satisfaction rating was another very strong of those expressing an opinion. 83% were satisfied with the overall services provided by the library. Very much in line with the results that we've had in previous years. I would be doing my staff a disservice if I did not give them all the credit for a result like that. They're the ones who are interacting with the public every single day. And I think that those high overall satisfaction ratings are really a credit to the work that they do every single day and their dedication to our community. So very gratifying to have a high rating again. There's also some comparative data there. Not only is it high with the experience that we've had over the last 6 years in the city, it's also when you compare to regional and national averages, satisfaction with the library is significantly higher than what is seen in other parts, in other areas. So that's very gratifying. When we dig into, and I will first say that we haven't had a lot of time to dig into this. I do have a meeting with our team leads next week where we are going to talk about this and dig into some of this. I also gave you all so on the survey, it breaks down, what's your satisfaction with various components of library services. And as you can see, satisfaction of physical resources is pretty high. I won't read every single one of these. I think what I'll do is I will go to the emphasis, public library services that should receive the most emphasis over the next 2 years. So the responses from city residents on those, a lot of, the top 4, the top 3 are either programming or outreach related, which is not a surprise. That's consistently what we've heard. It's very good to have this discussion as we get into budget season because, as we all know, programs and outreach, those are staff dependent. The primary driver of those is staff, and we always want to be able to send people out of the building to go do things or to do programs, and that means we have to fill a desk, or we have to make sure that that's covered. So that's the challenge that we have, one of the challenges that we have with that. How do you get your information about the library? Once again, Trail News is way up there. And for city residents, that makes a lot of sense because that's one of the city's primary communication vehicles. It's also one of the more preferred ways to get information about the city. So we're something that we just have to deal with. The last 2 I put in there, one of the things that this firm does for us is they do what's called the important satisfaction ratings. So they take what do people say they are least satisfied with combined with what is most important to them, with the theory that if satisfaction is lower and importance is higher, those are probably things that you should focus on or at least drawn to your attention. And so when you're looking at the library, again, events for seniors is the top, outreach program, events. It's those outreach and those programming things. So we know that's an area that we would like to look at. I think there will be some good budgetary conversations around that. Overall, when you talk budget, I also included the citywide one. So when they asked about, not just library services, but overall in the city, what's most important to city residents versus, your satisfaction. This is the two-edged sword of doing a really good job of overall satisfaction ratings. Is since our satisfaction rating is so high, when you look at, where the city should focus on most of their efforts, we're at the bottom of the list, which...
That's good.
It's good, except for budget hearings when.
Okay.
So that's it's good that people think we're doing a good job. It does make it a little harder to say, we figure out resources and the like. So that's.
Okay. So we have a pretty defined revenue source.
Yes, that we do. It's yes. Maybe in 10 years in the future, that'll be different. Who knows?
Yes.
But anyway.
I mean, in terms of allocations of other, general fund, it's,
yes.
It's a small piece of our total.
Yes, yes, it is. So those were the results of the city satisfaction survey. I think as we go forward into presumably with our budget committee talks, and as we start looking at tactical plan initiatives for the next biennium, I think this survey is a great tool to help inform some of those. But at this point, if there are any comments or questions or observations, any feedback, happy to chat.
Do you compare? Is there an equivalent survey for the other cities in the county?
For other cities in the county, or
yeah. Do you get to have a beer with other cities and say, 83%? You have to
every city. I don't know off the top of my head which cities regularly do and which cities regularly don't. Some do, some don't. They all use different firms. They all have different instruments. They all have a different time frame. There's not that level of coordination. Now, what I will say is for our library cooperative, for LINK, one of the items we've identified in our LINK strategic plan going forward for the next 3 years is, man, if all of us libraries are doing this kind of surveying, wouldn't it be more efficient and cheaper if we all kind of did it together? So that is something, right. Yes. So for the libraries, yes, we are looking at what opportunities do we have to kind of, if Lake Oswego is doing a library survey and we're doing one and West Lynn is doing one, let's try to get it all together and ask the same questions.
But Link wouldn't ask about road maintenance and police and code enforcement.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So that the scope of that idea is libraries only. And honestly, I don't think you're ever going to get 13 cities to agree on doing a survey in the same way. It's just
But there might be something around unincorporated areas because that's not addressed through the cities.
Correct. Yes.
So that might be an interesting place to start.
And I have shared our instrument that we use with some of my other directors, and they're like, "Oh, that's it's a great place to start with talking about." So.
Well, that's a great introduction to the next piece, and that is, do we want to repeat the survey that we did last time, the same survey with the unincorporated area? I certainly think we should. It's what, about $10,000? Is that right, Greg?
Between 10 and 15, I want to say, yeah.
What was the date on that survey?
When we did it 2 years ago, it was about this time, I want to say.
It's been 2 years ago?
It has been 2 years ago.
No way.
Yeah.
That's what I said, too. No way.
My goodness. Okay.
Time flies. Yes.
Yeah.
And the goal has always been to get to the point where we can kind of do it at the same exact time as the city survey. We didn't quite make it this year because of other things going on. But
I was going to make that recommendation that we do it consistently with the 2 years.
We tried. Part of the difficulty is that the city survey is handled by our communications department, and since it's just us for the county library part, it's a separate project, and so we have
But we're using the same firm, correct?
Correct. Yes, we're using the same firm.
So it'd be really interesting to see if we did them at the same time, could they extract information that would be across the whole library district, our library service area?
Yeah, I mean, they could, except we, for each portion, and to them, it's also very separate because for the city survey, it has to go within city limits, and for our library, yeah.
But if we do, but it'd be interesting to see how it aligned, like those reports are so, so easy to read in terms of, the comparisons and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
So any discussion about whether we should not do this survey again? Okay, well, I think you've got the sense of the board, Greg.
And we budgeted for it when we put together our budget. I just wanted to make sure that was still the desire of the board. It is a strong desire of mine because I don't want to miss 40% of our service area population. So.
Absolutely.
Do we need a motion on that? No.
I don't think so because if you'd like to, sure.
No, I mean, it's budgeted and it's there. You have the sense of the board, just go for it.
I think the main question I would have is I put in the survey instrument that we used last time around. And, part of the goal of that was to kind of mimic the city survey fairly closely. So we would have apples to apples comparisons. If you wanted a chance, we have more flexibility with the unincorporated survey because it's just ours. We can't really change a lot on the city survey. If there is a desire to look closely at the survey instrument we're using for unincorporated, we could certainly do that. Otherwise, I'm pretty comfortable going, with we have. But that's I want to get your the board's sense on that.
I would suggest that if we do modify it, we add things rather than change them so we can compare item by item.
Yes.
Good point.
I agree, Larry. That's what I was going to say too, is ask the same questions so we have the same categories to compare. It's okay to add new questions because then, we could ask those, the next round, but it doesn't do much good if you don't have the same questions asked.
Yeah.
One question I had is that some of the things that we did, I know that there were meetings like with some of the, I forget what they're called, hamlets?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was something that we did new, correct? We weren't doing that before?
Correct.
Is there any way to get questions or can we see if there are questions about that? Because that's something that we changed.
They were so underpopulated, unfortunately. I mean, Greg and I we did 3 of them, I guess. And there just were so few people there that I'm not sure we're going to get anything.
Okay.
Yeah, fortunately. I mean, we'd like we'd like more folks, and if there's an opportunity, we're going to take it to go back out.
Well, I think the timing's good too, because if we do the survey soon, then I know we have things underway with, with the outreach vehicle and things like that.
Yep. And I haven't had a chance to talk to David about this, but yes, as part of that outreach vehicle, I am planning to go back out to those groups and talk with them. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, we're in the process of applying a grant for an LSTA grant, and having some expression of support from our unincorporated residents would be very helpful in pursuit of that grant. So I'm hoping to get back out there sooner rather than later to talk with them about that.
Is there any way to pursue things through the school district? Like maybe to go to some school function or PTA or whatever they're called nowadays?
I would think so. We have an expert, a school district expert here.
Okay.
I mean, it's usually they do have open houses and ongoing events, and I know that the libraries participate in the past, so it'd just be continuing those conversations. We do have a literacy specialist now, Candace Hinken, and so there's a specific person to contact that would be good for the overall all the schools.
Yeah, and we talked Candace, and as part of the grant, I'd have to go look at the boundaries of the school. One of the things about the LSTA grant this year is you need to specifically identify the underserved populations you're trying to reach. That's one of the criteria that they're using for evaluating grant requests. And our definition of unincorporated and rural is slightly different than what, I can't remember which state agency it is, but there's some state agency that's got a definition of who counts as rural, and I'm not sure how it overlaps with the school district. So while we may think of, Redlands school is in an unincorporated or more rural area, I can't remember if it actually meets the criteria that the state is using for rural. So
I was just trying to think of how we could get some of the information out about the initiatives that are going on.
Oh yeah, we can certainly we can share with that. Yeah, we have good relationships with schools, so I think we can. Heck, I bet we could probably get in front of maybe even get in front of a school board.
There you go.
Meeting at some point.
Now you're pushing your luck.
Heidi's gonna be right there with the clock, saying, "No, Williams is here. No, he gets 2 minutes and no more."
All right, thank you all.
So it sounds like sounds like there's no specific feedback on questions to add to the unincorporated survey. I get if
We may want to look at the minutes of the meeting that we presented it last time, and I don't believe there were any other, but if there were, it would be in those minutes.
Okay.
But I think we were all very happy with it, so. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Budget time is coming, folks, and we need a budget committee, and I certainly want to serve on it. And I don't know how, Greg, how many folks would you like on the budget committee?
The more the merrier. It's folks who are interested in this. I think last time we had 3 or 4, and I thought that was a pretty good number. But if everybody would like to do it, it'd be great.
And one thing that we've been trying to avoid, and although we haven't done it in a couple of months now, and I think we need to, Greg, I've been meeting with Greg and the city manager or the assistant city manager, just so that we don't get, last time when we got to the budget hearing, the city manager had already put forth his budget. I had a very different view and fought pretty hard at the budget hearings, and there was tension, and Greg was caught right in the middle of it. I mean, because he reports to the city manager, and I'm the board chair and responsible for this, and we're trying to avoid that tension, so that before we get before the commission, we're pretty much in agreement as to So we'll do our lobbying hard with Tony and with Alex, but we just got to be clear as a board as to what we want to push forward on. I know things are going to be tight from everything we're hearing. And I just heard on the radio driving home today how much money, for example, the Portland Public Schools have to cut from their budget. It was $40 million something, just a phenomenal amount of tightness in the state. So I don't think we're going to have any great largesse this year, but it would be helpful for us to get some consensus on where we would like to focus, so that we can put some pressure on the manager to see if we can get that into the budget. So volunteers. Okay, Nick, thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else?
I'd like to learn.
Okay. So Bill.
I just want to make a comment. I'm not volunteering.
I wasn't sure what your hand was for, Heidi.
Yes, I took it down quickly. I'm not volunteering. It was very meaningful last time when we had the student testimony during that. So either recruiting somebody from the youth group or having their testimony is the representation of all who use the services is an important part. So if there's any way to, even reach out to other, just patrons and get input or have them participate in the committee, it would be great to have that input.
Okay.
And to echo what David said, I have had some conversation with Tony, and yes, we all want to make sure that we're on good communication this time around. Tony has been very clear, and not because he's a bad person. It's just like David said, this is where we are as a state. Revenues go up approximately 3% a year. Healthcare costs. What was the last estimate we got, Denise? It was somewhere in like the 10 to 15% range. We're going to go up
14%.
14%. We've got built in we are also heading into contract negotiations with our union, with AFSCME, and at the very least, COLAs, cost of livings, are usually 3%. So there's going to be some challenges. We're in slightly better position because so much of our funding is from the library district, and we can kind of work within that. I feel better about where we are staffing wise than I did 2 years ago, which is great. But yeah, I think a lot of the challenge and our work as a budget committee this time around is going to be, okay, with kind of this a more fixed pot of money, like where is it important for us to focus on, and also looking 10 years, doing our 10-year forecast. I think we, as I'll share with the budget committee, we came in a little higher on revenue than we forecast 2 years ago, which is always great because that helps us get a little farther on. So I do want to take another look at that, and I think primarily those are kind of the areas that we'll be able to think about. Like, okay, if we're pretty confident we're going to have this much revenue going forward and this kind of fund balance, where does it make sense to maybe expend some of that on services, and the like. So.
Last year was such a big year in terms of repositioning, in terms of the monies that were out there in that reserve fund.
Yeah,
I think last year was. I think you guys did a wonderful job of getting that addressed and getting a new foundation in terms of how we're going to use that money, at least conceptually going forward. And I think that's huge.
Yeah,
right. But we'll look at that. We had some concerns about there being, without a new bond measure, there's going to be a cliff in about 6 or 7 years, 8 years, maybe. It's hard to, that's what we need to work out now.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure that the commission is sensitive to what that means. Hopefully we'll have a new bond by that point, but that's sometime in the future yet. Okay. So
it was Nick, David, Bill. Did I miss anybody else?
And I think we'll ask Lisa to try to recruit somebody from the teen group.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be healthy for them, and I think it's a great idea. So thank you, Heidi, for the idea.
So for that group, I will let you know our budget cycles are always compressed. So, we're starting now. So I'll probably reach out to you hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully we can get at least an initial meeting set up maybe in the week after.
Sounds great.
Hopefully people have got some time available for that. Okay.
All right. So operating hours change.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I just brought this back to you. This was something we talked about a few months ago, and just because there's only Denise and myself, we got busy with other things, so we have not been able to implement the operating hours changes that we talked about. So since it had been a few months since we talked about it, I just wanted to bring it back to you, just to remind of the discussions that we had. Because of the timing, I was able to run another calendar year's worth of data, and the short version is the data show the exact same thing, if not more so, than they showed last year. Still, that last half hour of the day is, while we do get some foot traffic, it's very hard for me to justify the expenditure of finite staff resources on a time when sometimes there's more staff in the building than there are patrons. And so I'd very much still like to move a bunch of those hours to open a little earlier on Sunday, because I think the data at least suggests that is the time that we're going to get a lot more efficient use of our resources. So at the time, the board expressed support of that idea. Since we hadn't implemented it, I just wanted to bring it back to just make sure that everybody was still on the same page, that if there were any other questions. I didn't want anybody to feel like, I forgot we talked about this. So I just wanted to make sure that
do you have some kind of implementation timeline for this, or what's
sometime in March is what we're going for. So Denise and I are going to talk about it. We are contractually required to give union represented staff 30 days notice of any schedule change. So I think our hope is to be able to get that out to our union represented staff in the next couple of weeks, and then start with the public information portion of it right at the same time. Give folks about a month to get, to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Great. Thank you.
Heidi, did you have a question?
It was answered by Cynthia. The other comment was just, it's going to make it into Trails and News, right? We're going to make sure that it gets into publication.
We are going to do our best.
There you go.
Bill, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick one. If there's any pushback, it may be satisfied by having lockers.
Yes.
I know you're just going out to bid. What's the timeline for lockers?
The timeline for lockers is the RFP closed on January 15th. I am on the group that will be reviewing the responses
Of course.
with some other link colleagues. I am waiting to hear back from Clackamas County Procurement on what the schedule of that is, but I know they want to get done. The goal is to have this all wrapped up in a contract in place so that all of our link libraries can place orders starting July 1st with the new biennium. So I would anticipate in the next month or so we'll get through the main part of the procurement evaluation, and I'll keep you all posted. But we're very excited to be here.
Okay, but it won't coincide with changing hours by at least six months or something.
No, but I part of me is always hesitant to get out information about things that we plan in the future. But I think we will mention that, yes, one of the initiatives that we have identified and put budgetary funds aside for is to get those lockers to be able to help, if there are people who are the only time they can make it to the library is between 6:30 and 7 on a weeknight, that'll be another option for them. If anybody were to come to us with that issue, we would see what else we might be able to do to help mitigate that. We're always trying to help make things better for our community. But looking at the data, I don't foresee it's going to be a huge issue.
Got it. Nice.
Okay, communications. Nick, anything from LDAC? You haven't met, I don't believe.
We haven't met. I don't know if there's any. Greg, is there any update in terms of the committee?
No, the only update that the library directors, we have forwarded on to the county a list of library directors who, if asked and chosen, would be happy to serve on any task force, and so that will be up to the county administrator to make those decisions.
Is there a target though for getting that task force underway?
I have not had any more communications on that, and okay. I was going to ask at our directors group meeting, which was last Thursday, and we had a floor project issue that kept me from going to that meeting. Gotcha. And I've just not had a chance to check in with Rick to see what the discussion is. So I will have some more information for you at our next month's meeting.
Okay, great. Okay, Oz, the Friends.
Yeah, we had a Zoom meeting for the same reason we're having a Zoom meeting tonight. There were a couple of things that came up. One was a suggestion of 2 additional cultural passes that might be considered both railroad-oriented. And Greg has, of course, discussed that with Link and coordinate if we desire to have those. And the second thing was pretty important. A anonymous donation of $15,000, which I think is the largest they've ever received, which is good for them and good for us. That's it.
Great. Foundation?
Well, we meet tomorrow. So we did meet in December. And as you know, we have our fundraiser event scheduled for April 3rd at the Ainsworth House between 4:30 and 6 p.m., I believe are the hours. There'll be adult beverages and music and the usual raffle. No formal speaker this time. We're going to look at what other activities we might do to engage, the people that are there. So stay tuned for that. There'll be plenty of good food. We'll be having our elections for officers tomorrow, and I'll report back to you on that in February. We're, supporting the book locker effort on the part of the library and the van purchase. And I think Greg can give us an update on the van purchase.
Yeah, I can give. Unfortunately, we've elected, because we're applying for an LSTA grant. That is one of those grants that you are not allowed to use. You can only spend grant money after you have been awarded the grant and on a particular cycle. So that cycle, if we are successful in getting the grant, begins July 1st. if we were to make any purchase before then and get the grant, we couldn't use the grant dollars. So out of prudence, we are waiting until we hear back on the LSTA grant. If we are unsuccessful, we should know by the end of February. If we are successful, we would not be in a position to be making purchases until July 1st. So until we kind of know the status of that, and we are asking for $48,000, which is a big chunk of change. So I think it's worth, kind of delaying a little bit in the hopes of maybe receiving that grant.
Great. All right, the teams. Lisa?
Yeah, they did not meet this month, but they are awaiting a quote for their final furniture order for the teen area. So that's kind of exciting. Hopefully they'll have that in before their next meeting in February.
Great, thank you. And
that's a laptop bar. If anybody doesn't know, the teens let us know that the 2 internet computers that we always had in there are not used and are not useful to them. And so we are going to put in a laptop bar because that's what they said they wanted. And I'm really liking that teen room now. It's really great.
Great. The only other update I have is that, as I mentioned the last time, I started a bit of a crusade about ebooks, and I've done a fair amount of reading and research, and I've sent a draft report, sort of at the state of that in the country right now, to Greg, who's going to go through it, and then he and I are meeting with the state librarian in the next couple of weeks to see whether there's a draft bill that has come out nationally that legislatures may be able to pass and that could pass muster in the federal courts, because previous ones, Maryland passed a law that was signed by their governor and then it was turned over in the federal courts as being unconstitutional. And so they've revised a potential bill that could get around that. So we'll see whether we'll push to see if the governor and the attorney general are interested in getting a bill in front of the legislature this year here and test it. It's a real nightmare, and it looks like what the publishing industry is doing to libraries is what the drug industry has done to medicine. Very similar, big business coming together. It looks like colluding. It's very hard to prove in order to change the whole approach to how ebooks are priced and licensed rather than sold. So anyway, we're still working on that in the background, and as soon as we get this report refined, I'll send it around to all of you to just get you up to date. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Great, thank you all for showing up on Zoom, and I look forward to seeing you next month, and Happy New Year all.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you again for patience.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.